Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Winning Drive podcast. I am Reeta Hubbard, the NFL chick, co-host of the Glenn and Rita Show on 105.7 The Fan, with my guy Cordell Woodland from Shaking It Up Sports and the Ravens reporter for 105.7 The Fan. And Ravens host the Cleveland Browns this weekend, Cordell. And an interesting matchup currently at the moment. All four NFC North teams are eligible for the playoffs. Now, obviously, the playoffs are a long way from now. We're only midway through the season, but I think that's important to acknowledge because it says a lot about what this division is like and how, very competitive it is. And the Browns have been competitive thus far, even with the injuries that they dealt with at the quarterback position because Deshaun Watson has been out, for a few weeks. But he did return last week against Arizona now, and he beat Arizona pretty handily. Now, Arizona had not Josh Dobbs and not Kyler Murray, a guy that, many people do not know playing. So I'm sure that played a big role into why they were extremely dominant. But nonetheless, they win. They're 5-3. The Ravens are coming into this match up 7-2. So let's start with the defensive side for the Ravens against that offense for the Browns. Now, from the DVOA perspective, it's not going to look that great in terms of their offense because they've missed Deshaun Watson on there. They're currently ranked 28th. And again, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that Deshaun Watson had missed some time. And yes, they did score handedly on Sunday's game, but they still have some ways to go to kind of bring themselves back up to make up for the weeks that he was out against this Ravens defense that is currently ranked 2 in DVOA. But we know that, they are first in sacks, first in scoring, so and points per game. So I'm in ninth in scoring. So they're ninth in scoring, first in points per game, and first in sacks. So when you look at this matchup, and correct me if I'm wrong here, I believe that I saw a report that their left tackle is not playing, and so there's a rookie that will be playing in place of their current left tackle. When you look at this matchup, because they're on paper, this offense is good. They have a pretty good offense. They brought Kareem Hunt back after what happened to Nick Chubb. They have Amari Cooper and, they have Donovan Peoples-Jones and their tight end is really good. So when you look at this, and we've sit here and talked about, these other teams, the Bengals and the Seahawks was all going to give these guys problems, but essentially the Ravens handled their business defensively. Do you consider this to be a challenge for them now that Deshaun Watson is under center?
I mean,
okay, tell us how you really feel, friend.
Not really a challenge because of him. I think it'll be a challenge because it's a division game, and the Browns are going to give them their best shot. Especially they know how important this game is. They look in the division, like you said earlier. Every AFC North team is in the postseason as of right now. Still very early in the season, but it just makes these games even more meaningful, especially considering Cleveland has already lost the first one. So I do think that this is an offense that is healthier to a degree. Like you mentioned, the offensive line already has some health issues as well. Watson is back, but he's not fully back. This is still a guy that I think he's going to be dealing with this shoulder injury pretty much for the rest of the season. So he's playing through it. I look at, obviously, having Deshaun Watson there is an upgrade over PJ Walker or Dorian Thompson-Robinson. So I'll admit that, but I still don't look at this offense and specifically Deshaun Watson and say, oh, he scares me. They scare me. This is, I just don't. They can run the ball. They want to run the ball. That. But the Ravens, and I had my concerns about the Ravens rush defense early in the season. That's gone away. That's gone. So I just
what has changed your mind? The interior linemen stepping up.
Yeah, really the way that they've been playing as of late. I mean, their stunt game is probably the best in the league, and they don't just do it obviously, as a pass rushing unit, the stunts are crazy, but even in the run game, I mean, Michael Pierce and Justin Madubuike are just playing out of this world in the middle of that.
Travis Jones has played well
Travis
too.
Jones has
Don't
been
leave him
really
out.
good. No, for sure. Travis Jones has been a part of that rotation. Brody is still a part of that rotation as well.
Yep.
And those linebackers, I mean, the whole unit is just so good right now. I think in the run game, they're forcing teams to be one-dimensional. And I just don't think Deshaun Watson scares me. I look at this and I think right now, I don't know who's better between Deshaun Watson and Geno Smith. To be honest with you, I don't. And that's honestly what I think when I look at this team. I look at the Browns and the kind of how they get theirs in the passing game, similar to how the Seahawks get theirs. Every now and then, sure, they may hit you over the top to something to Amari Cooper. I mean, we saw Amari Cooper score this past Sunday on a touchdown that came off on a ball that came off somebody's helmet, and
Right.
he kicked it in the end zone. I mean, that's the kind of fluke stuff that's happening. I just don't think that I just don't think their offense will be very successful against the Ravens. I think you're going to see a lot of 3 and outs. I think you're going to see some drives stall out towards midfield. They may settle for some field goals or try to. But I just don't think that the Browns are going to be able to put up many points. I just think that Watson is going to look more like a runner than a passer in this game. And I think that's going to bode well for the Ravens.
I agree with you on that. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that I don't know how healthy Deshaun Watson really is. That injury is not something that necessarily goes away. It takes time, and he's missed multiple games already with it, and that was his first game back. Now, obviously, he could continue to feel better, and it might get better. I'm just making the point of, it potentially still being a problem for him, that it affects his throwing motion. It affects what he wants to do downfield. I do think that they have good players that can compensate for his shortcomings, like you mentioned, the touchdown or the pass that was caught on the man's helmet. But ultimately, I just if the Ravens somehow find a way to eliminate the run, and you're asking Deshaun Watson to throw the ball, oh yeah, and by the way, I mentioned the fact that the left tackle is going to be out. I just don't know how this is going to go. So it's going to be interesting because I believe that they're moving someone else. They've made 2 changes on the line. I believe that there's going to be the left tackle situation and the right tackle situation as well. So, this is an interesting, state of events in terms of Deshaun Watson's health as well as the health of this offensive line, if they're going to be able to keep up, because this Ravens defense has done very, very well on the edges. We know that they're first in sacks. So we know that guys like Clowney, Kyle Van Noy, even Oweh last week was, getting pressure on the quarterbacks, and how Deshaun Watson is going to handle it is really going to be interesting to see, because this defense has just been really lights out when it comes to rushing the passer.
Yeah, I think this is a bad time for Cleveland to be dealing with offensive line issues when this has just been crazy.
I agree.
They've been crazy good, and both guys on the edges too. Van Noy has been really good. Clowney's been really good. Oweh's been really good since he's come back. So I just think this is a bad time to have. I mean, we looked at that injury report the other day on Wednesday when that came out, and it looked like the Browns' entire roster was on that injury report. And you look at the Ravens, it's only 3 guys on there, and I think one of them, being Morgan Moses, was a full participant in practice. So it's just not a good time to be dealing with health issues going against this Ravens team, because I think obviously Madubuike is playing at a high level. Mentioned a lot of these guys on the defensive front. I would just if I'm Cleveland, they've kind of got to just fight it off, try to hang in there as long as they can, not hurt themselves, turnovers, because we expect this to kind of be a defensive battle a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's kind of going to be about what offense doesn't hurt themselves the most. And we've seen the Ravens deal with some of those issues as well with some of their fumble problems. If Cleveland comes out there and they're turning the ball over, which this Ravens defense has been good at forcing to this point in the year, I just think it'll be a bad day for them.
I agree. I definitely think that this is going to be difficult. Again, they got the skill players, so I'm not going to sit here and act like, they don't have guys that are competent that they can absolutely make a run for. I just don't. I don't see it though,
Yeah.
Cordell. Like I want, there's pieces there. The pieces are there, but there's so many question marks. I think that have me wondering. Like, yeah, the pieces are there, but this, but that, and a lot of it has to do with health, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that this is only going to be a second game back after missing X amount of games.
Mhm.
So how does that fare well against a defense that is playing at such a high level right now? And that's the part that I think that I I'm going to put my money on the Ravens on that side right there, because obviously, they're right now playing at an extremely high level, and they've played against formidable opponents already and have played at that similar level.
I mean, this is a defense that leads the league in sacks right now. I mean, if you're Deshaun Watson and you're already dealing with a shoulder injury and you got injury problems to your offensive line, you're worried about this game because you know they're coming. You know they're coming. And this whole notion that the Ravens are only sending 4 and not really blitzing guys, I mean, that they do very well. I already mentioned with the stunts, but also with the delayed blitzes, of giving you the illusion that it's only 4 when really it's more. So I just, I agree. I just don't think this is a good matchup for Cleveland's offense.
Yeah, we're again ranked 28th in DVOA. So that says a lot about what they've been doing the last few weeks. So that defense has been very good in helping them carry the load. And we'll talk about that next. All right, let's flip the script here. Ravens offense versus the defense of the Cleveland Browns. Currently, the Browns is listed as the number 1 ranked defense in DVOA versus the Ravens number 4 ranked offense. I'm not a person, Cordell. I believe that points per game, scoring defenses tells more of the story as opposed to yards. But look, if y'all want to use whatever metrics that you would like, because a lot of people believe that the Browns are the number 1 defense, and some people believe that the Ravens are the number 1 defense. My thing is that if I'm leading the league in points per game, that's the number 1 defense to me. But that's me personally, right? But ultimately, we know that this is a very good defense. The Browns are. And, that was definitely a fear when the Ravens played them a couple of weeks ago. Took them a while to really kind of get the ball rolling there, but eventually found a way to start scoring against this defense and essentially won big in Cleveland. So you got to assume that they know what happened the first time. They're like, we're not going to do this again. However, here's some things here. Mark Andrews has become more of a factor. And when they played, the first time, wasn't necessarily like he was still trying to come off of whatever injury he was dealing with. Didn't have Keaton Mitchell at the time. And he had a big breakout game. And you and I both talked about this, that we believe that he's going to find a way to get more active in this offense. And so that's, to me, is like, okay, well, let's see what's going to happen here. So how do you foresee this offense potentially, or how can they have a repeat performance like they did the last time when they played this team?
Well, I think it'll be tough to duplicate what they did last time. I mean, they had DTR with three interceptions in the game. I mean, they benefited very much from short fields. And they were good. I mean, Lamar's legs really got it going in the red zone, especially being able to get those 2 rushing touchdowns in that game. Mark Andrews, like you mentioned, Mark Andrews is definitely more of a guy now in this offense than he was then. And even then, Mark killed him, had the 2 touchdowns in that game. And that was really just him. I think that was really kind of his coming out party to kind of start this stretch for him. So how do they go about this? First of all, like I said, it really depends on Cleveland's offense. Are they going to give the Ravens short fields again? Because if they are, the Ravens have shown that they will make teams pay. But in terms of just how they're going to go about attacking this defense, I do still believe that Lamar's legs is going to be a factor in this game, because you got to stop those edge guys. You got to slow Myles Garrett down. You can't let him know where Lamar is going to be at all times and who has the ball. So you got to play with his eyes. And Keaton Mitchell coming on last week could be a perfect timing, because to get those two speed guys back there and force those edge guys to make quick and correct decisions on some of these read options, I think it'll be really important. But this could also be a Gus Edwards game. I just really think the run game is what's going to do it for the Ravens in this week. You don't want to, this isn't the week to have Lamar sitting back there, dropping back 30 plus times. This is just not what you want to do. Ronnie Stanley isn't having his best year right now. Pass protection has been a problem a little bit. So I would just want to keep Cleveland as honest as possible. This is a defense that likes to play aggressive, that likes to take the fight to you. And the way you kind of combat that is to run the ball, establish the run early. So that's what I'm looking for the Ravens to do. And kind of off that, go off play, get some play action going, maybe some first down play actions. I'm not opposed to that. But yeah, try to maybe this is the week where something down the field happens, because they've established the run game so well that play action has kind of brought people in. And they've gotten to finally connect to Rashad Bateman or somebody down the field. I'd also say this would be a good week to bring back some of that stuff with Lamar presenting himself as a runner and then throwing the ball again, because this is like I said, a downhill fast type of defense. They want to hit Lamar. That's who they're going to be, all eyes are going to be on. So once he breaks out of that pocket and he presents himself as a runner, some of that stuff I believe is really going to open up down the field again. So I just think it's all about kind of forcing Cleveland to be honest and not allowing them to just rush the passer all day, because if that's the case, the Ravens are going to be in trouble.
Yeah, I like, so, a couple weeks ago when we saw Lamar kind of freelancing a little bit, like, pretending to run, and he was bringing up safeties and making the defenses honest, and yet then he was throwing the ball. I feel like that's the type of game he's going to have, right? Like one of those moving around a little bit, because they do have the pass rush. They've got Myles Garrett over there. Zadarius Smith over there has played really well for them. So you're going to have to probably, the way that he's been in the pocket the last few weeks, and particularly with the way that Ronnie Stanley has played, because he hasn't been 100%. This is not the Ronnie Stanley that we're used to. I mean, he's still playing well, but his anchor is lost a little bit, and so there's been some struggles there. So in this regard, I think that this will be the week that you move Lamar around a little bit. And I'm not suggesting that he runs. That's not what I'm saying. I think that, he's just going to have to find a way to kind of elude the pass rush and use his legs and doing that. And then using those plays and those freelance plays of like getting the ball to Gus or getting the ball to Keaton Mitchell, or, throwing it downfield to Zay, because he's extended the play. Those types of things are going to probably have to happen. I trust this offensive line, don't get me wrong, but I do acknowledge the fact that this defensive front is very good. And, you're probably going to have to do things a little bit different. You're probably going to have to add Project Pat, AKA Pat Ricard, in a little bit more for some blocking situations. Or freelance to Ricard and have him, block and release and have him go downfield for some things. And then that forces this defense to be honest a little bit more. So the one thing I do think about this is that I do think that this is not necessarily going to be the same type of matchup that it was the last time. I feel like that the Browns defense there's going to be some things that they're not going to allow. But then I think because Lamar has done so well with, making moves on the fly, that becomes problematic for them. And so that could potentially be a thing. I'm not sure if they're going to put up 28 points like they did last time, because I think that, this defense is very well coached by Jim Schwartz. But ultimately, I think that they have the weaponry and the balance to really put the Browns on their heels and in that regard. And they're at home. And while I understand that the Ravens haven't been like the best in terms of playing at home, they've already won their game on the road. You know what I'm saying? So now they have the crowd behind them to help them out a little bit. So I think that those things will be key. But, it will be interesting to see because, Ravens ranked 6th in total offense. Whatever metrics y'all want to use for the Browns, they ranked 1st in total offense, although I disagree, but whatever it is what y'all want it to be. So this is definitely the battle. I think the battle that we thought we would see a few weeks ago is more so what we're going to see Sunday as opposed to the blowout that we saw a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think Cleveland's offense is going to play perfect, but I don't think they'll play as bad as they did.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying.
Weeks ago. Yeah.
All right, so it's decision-making time, Cordell. Ravens are still listed as the number 1 team in DVOA, while Cleveland moved up 3 spots and is now the number 8 team in total DVOA. So when we talked about the matchups, we know what it is. We know it's going to be Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith versus that offensive line. We know that they are missing offensive linemen. I think it's Jarek Willis that is out for he's been put on IR, and they got other players that are still trying to come back from injury as well. Against this defense that has been flying all around, but also Deshaun Watson is back. There's so many different variables here, right? You do not seem to be very afraid of this Browns offense. You were very meh when we first started this podcast. So I gotta assume that you are underwhelmed with what they could do on one side of the ball, and that would essentially mean a Ravens victory. Am I correct on this one?
You are. I mean, this defense has been so stout all year. I don't think the Browns are going to be the offense to crack the code. I just don't. I don't think Watson is there right now. I don't know if he'll be the quarterback that he was in Houston anymore. I mean, I was kind of wondering if he could, and I'm sure the shoulder injury is hindering that quite a bit. But right now, I just don't think he's going to be the quarterback that picks this defense apart. I don't think that the Browns are going to run the ball the way that they'd like to. I don't know if the Ravens will completely shut the run game down because they stick to the run so much that they are going to force it to be a factor in the game. I just don't know if it'll be a big enough factor for the Browns to put up the points that they need. So I'm going to say that the Ravens end up winning this game. I'll say 23-17.
Damn, took my number.
Yeah,
okay.
That's
not the whole prediction, but the 23 was definitely
the
mine.
23. Yeah.
Yeah. So Ravens are currently 6-point favorites in this game. My concern, Cordell, going into this game is the fact that the Ravens simply just cannot get out of their own way when it comes to turnovers. We saw, and not necessarily full turnovers, but the fumbles are still there. Even though they're recovering the fumbles at this point, it's still a problem. I don't know. You can't do that against this Browns defense. You cannot allow them to get in position to score potentially on any fumbles. The Ravens have to find a way to make this not a thing this week, because you don't want to allow the Browns to get in good field position. You don't want to allow their defense to do the scoring for their offense, which is very possible as well. So the turnovers got to stop. I definitely think that this will be a closer game for obvious reasons. The quarterback is back and all of that stuff. And I just really feel like that this defense of the Browns is very good. Not that necessarily means anything, because the Ravens have just been, oh, y'all said that this is good. Okay, well, we going to do this on them. You know what I mean? But ultimately, I do think that this will be a closer game because I think that they have better weapons available this go around. That being said, the Ravens have done a really good job with playing up to their opponent. And the Browns right now only have 3 losses. The Ravens only have 2 losses. So I think that they understand what's at stake here. They know that the Browns are a formidable team and they'll find a way to win. So I'm going to say, since you said 23, I'm going to say 24-20. I don't that which means I don't think that they're going to cover. Obviously, I think they're going to win, but then I also have the over because the over under is 38, and that would mean that I would have them at 44. So I definitely think that maybe like there's some type of late scoring at the end of the game that gets the Browns kind of back in the fold, but then the Ravens will somehow come out victorious in this win. So you and I both agree. Ravens it is against the Browns, which if they win, when they win, will make their division record 3-1.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one to be in. And I would just say, look, it's not going to be pretty. It's
it's
not going to be pretty. It's going to be some bad moments. Maybe even for both sides of the ball. These division games are weird at times. You start to see some things that you haven't seen or that you weren't expecting to see. You just got to prepare yourself for everything. Make no mistake about it. The Browns could win. I mean, there's a path for it. I just don't believe that their offense will do enough to make that happen. But could I see a scenario in which they ugly themselves to a win? Sure. It's a division game. Anything can happen. But I would just say, yeah, this is definitely going to be a game where people are probably going to have some things to say about the Ravens offense afterwards because it just didn't always look pretty. You're probably going to see some guys on defense maybe miss some tackles or something because they got some guys that do run the ball very hard. Amari Cooper can make you look bad at times. So who knows what can happen. But all in all, I do think that the Ravens are just too hot right now, too healthy, and just playing too well to lose this game at home.
I agree. There's about 6 guys currently that the Browns are dealing with injuries that potentially won't play, and we already acknowledged the tackle in that regard. So they lost a defensive back as well last week. So that's another thing that's something to worry about, Cameron Mitchell. So yeah, like you said, I think that the Ravens right now are healthy. The Browns, while they're generally still healthy, still have question marks of health at the quarterback position, the tackle position, and other situations. So it to me bodes as more of a problem for them than it does for the Ravens. So definitely get out there on Sunday. Make sure that you're loud. Make sure that you are giving the offense of the opposing team a lot of issues. Help the Ravens out on defense. It should be a good one. The Browns are not overachieving because I think when we did our predictions, I predicted that the Browns would be second in the division and that the Bengals would be third. So I'm definitely interested to see how this goes. That defense is definitely keeping them abreast thus far. But the Ravens right now, just like you said, got the hot hand. So should be fun. Enjoy the games, guys, this weekend. We'll be recapping it after the game. So please look forward to the follow-up episode for Winning Drive. We want to thank you all for listening. So from Cordell to me, this is Winning Drive.